Come on, Freda, stop. Put your magazine down, love.
I was going to read you some agony aunt stories. That's what I was going to do. Oh well, I forget that we're behind with the delay. Never mind.
So happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah.
How'd you like the new look?
2023.
How'd you like the new look, Gender Nebulous?
It looks amazing. You've done a good job there. Yeah, with my tutelage and
your tutelage.
Artistic direction. What do you think of my new look?
You do look. I like your t-shirt.
Yeah. You see what it says? I've moved my microphone.
Yeah, let's have a look. Are you man enough to be a woman?
Jane County. I was we was going to talk about Vivienne Westwood.
We are.
Before, because this isn't an original. This is it's a copy of a copy, basically. But it's from
if
that
that was
era.
The original, it'd be worth a fortune.
Yeah, it would, but it isn't. I got ripped off on eBay. But I still love it because I love Jane County.
So what have you been up to over this, the past couple of weeks? We've not done this for 2 weeks. Christmas, New Year.
Christmas. It was a weird Christmas, nice quiet Christmas, just me and my mum.
Yeah.
Because it's the first Christmas without my dad, so that was kind of, for my mum, I had to be there, and it's like little things you notice, like my dad's chair is empty. There's certain things that are. My mum doesn't really talk about emotional things. But if we see something on the telly, your dad like this, and then she'll start talking about him. So that's how she. And one of my mum's presents to me was like some of my dad's old RAF documents and his kind of award of service and stuff like that. And I thought, why are you giving me this now on Christmas Day? He's like, my mum doesn't. She's like, don't upset me. But it was a nice thing.
But she's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about New Year's Eve? What did you get up to? Anything exciting?
Well, I went to a party.
Oh.
And it was a kind of, non-binary, bisexual fetish party.
Oh.
And I sat on a postman's slave. What else did I do? Oh, I patted.
No wonder the post has been late recently.
I'm very tame though because I'm more of an observer of people. So I like to be involved, but I feel like I'm not really invested in that world. Because they're in it all the time, and that's like a lifestyle for some people. Whereas I'm I just dip my toes in because I think it's something exciting to do, and they know that, and I think people respect each other, but I'm not really invested in that world like some people are. So I always feel like I'm a sort of outsider observing. So when people talk to me, and I'm always conscious of the fact that I feel like an imposter sometimes in that world, but I'm not. It's just that imposter syndrome of like, I just do this thing now and again, and these people do it all the time, But
yeah, I wouldn't know how to look.
I think it's a really safe, respectful space. I
guess
like
it's
the people.
Yeah, it's much safer than being in a club in Manchester somewhere, isn't it? I mean, at least everybody in a private party like that is kind of like there's rules. I mean, if you do something wrong, they'll kick you out.
Well, there are trans women and trans girls there who haven't fully come out, and they go there because they can express themselves and just be themselves because they've not come out yet. And I'll talk to them, and we share information. And there was a lady there who was fully post-op, and she'd had all the surgery, and she was like showing us. It was like, oh my God, isn't that amazing? Like it was like wow. a sort of lesson in trans gynecology. And I didn't know what to say really. But anyway, it was really interesting. I mean, I don't know. It's not everybody's bag, is it? Looking at vaginas, but it was interesting.
Sounds like it was a very educational evening.
It was educational, informative, and like this podcast is. What did you get up to last night?
Well, I've been a bit sick this past week. I've had a bit of a cold. You can probably tell by my deep voice. I've been a bit snivelly. So I was just home, had a bottle of bubbly, and I watched the Jules Holland Hootenanny.
Was it good? He was on?
It was good. Oh, God, I can't remember who was on. There was all kinds of people on. It was good. It's always good.
Was Taylor Swift on?
No, Taylor Swift wasn't on.
Oh, it's a shame because I've been fascinated this week by a story. It's not a new story. This was a story from October, but it only came into my field of view.
Yeah.
Because somebody posted about it. Now, what this is about,
so I can
press
the magic button here, and Taylor Swift is going to appear in the background. So let me do that.
Hello, Taylor. Taylor! Where is she? Right, so anyway, what was interesting to me about this story, it sounds like a really banal, nothing story, but it's all about the way Taylor Swift holds her pen. Now, this was interesting to me because Taylor Swift, to me, represents something that is really normcore. Normcore is like this thing where you sort of play to the lowest common denominator. You're not not in any way subversive. You're just a kind of cultural, nothing exciting. I mean, I like Taylor Swift and I love her music, so so I've been practicing. This is how she holds a pen. Like most people will hold a pen like this.
I tried it myself earlier, and it's like I can't do that. Right? It just doesn't work for me.
And Taylor, she holds a pen like this now.
Yeah, why not?
No, that is unusual, isn't it? Now, the point. No, actually,
you know what? It does give you much more control over the pen.
Right, but the interesting thing for me about this, because Taylor is so, what we would say, archetypal, kind of not out of any, she's not queer, she's not, this little thing that is different about her has become a story.
Yeah, I mean, why? This is why I wanted to ask you. I mean, why has this become a story? It's like, so what? Somebody holds a pen differently, and.
But the thing, because like a lot of people go out of the way, don't they, to be subversive and to make that shock, send a message out. Like Harry Styles will wear female clothing, they'll make a statement, but all Taylor Swift has to do to be seen as something a little bit different is hold a pen slightly differently than everybody else. And I think that's really fascinating because it shows you
fascinating in that sense.
It shows you how people can appear to be different. Simply, it's like, people used to be left-handed. There used to be a boy at my school who was left-handed, and they tried to make him write with his right hand because they didn't think left hand. And I think it goes back to that idea of what is normalized and what is. So this thing, which I thought is a stupid story at first about Taylor Swift's pen, I thought, no, that's actually interesting because it's a story about somebody who we all think is fairly normal and boring and bland. Well, I do anyway. I did do about Taylor Swift. But although we don't really know Taylor Swift as a person, she might be a complete raving fetishist behind closed doors. We don't know. She might be sticking pens up her arse for all I know. But the way she holds a pen has become the story. And I have learned to write like Taylor Swift now. So I can write songs like Taylor Swift.
You've been practicing in the past few days, have you?
Yeah, I've actually learned to write, and it actually is better. I think Taylor Swift could start a revolution here.
I think it would take me a while to get used to doing that, but it does give you more control. I don't know. Yeah.
But the thing is that you thought this was a daft story, and I understand why, I did. But it appeals to me because people that are visibly different. Like I've always said that trans women, trans people, or queer people are people that dress differently. They're a walking protest, and just surviving the day looking different is a big deal. Now, somebody like Taylor Swift probably never had that problem, but the media will still go for something that is even the slightest, tiniest thing that is different about somebody and turn it into a story. And that's what I was getting at with that. And I like Taylor Swift. I quite like a new song, The Anti-Hero. It's a really good. It's quite deep. It is. It's a good song, And I've seen Taylor Swift live, and
I've never seen it live. Where did you see her live?
At Manchester Arena.
Oh wow!
With my sister. But the thing is, I would be like when I was younger, I'd have been, oh, Taylor Swift, whatever. Get yourself into some napalm death.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
I
when
wouldn't
you
have
look at
thought
it,
Taylor Swift would have been your kind of music, really. But anyway,
no, she's not. But I think as a cultural icon, as a person, as a thing in the culture, she can't be ignored.
I mean, she's totally LGBT positive as well, supportive.
Yeah,
She's really great.
exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, she's not somebody that's like sexual, like say like you've got Cardi B and people like that are overtly sexual, and like Kim Petras and Sam Smith who play on this idea of fetishism and stuff like that because that's part of pop culture now. But Taylor's not interested in that. I know Lady Gaga and people like that have flirted with the idea of fetish and
Taylor Swift
latex.
just does her own. She just does her own thing. I mean,
But that's the thing with Taylor Swift. That's why I'm saying all these people are clamoring so hard to be edgy. All Taylor Swift has to do is hold the pen
hold a pen
slightly differently, and
I understand
that's
why you want to talk
amazing.
about it now.
Right. I'm getting talking about sex and stuff. Did we watched Is it Delevingne? I'm not sure how you pronounce
Cara
it.
Delevingne.
Delevingne, yeah, she did this documentary called Planet Sex.
Planet Sex, yeah, it was really interesting. I watched it over the last week. It's kind of like 6 different episodes.
Did you watch them all?
I watched them all, so I'll just go through the names of the episodes just to give like the people an idea what it's about. It's kind of the first one was the orgasm gap, really interesting stuff. Out and proud, can porn be good? What's your gender? Monogamish, talking about monogamy. I can't even say that. Do you think I'm hot? I mean, it was really fun, kind of series.
The thing I liked about it was she talked about body shaming, and she talked about the idea of a lot of women, a lot of girls, a lot of men as well, but I think it's more girls ashamed for being sexual. Like if you express it.
There were some really good topics that came up in it, though. It was, so some of the little kind of side things she was talking about, I found them really interesting. I would highly recommend people go and watch.
I think what came across to me is like, if I'm going to say anything cynical about it, it's that Cara is from a very sort of specific social class, so she doesn't understand. Because she talked a little bit and she said, "Oh, I've never been to a gay club. I've never been." Well, it's probably because you never had to be protected and you never had to feel like you had to escape your house to feel accepted.
I think she comes from quite a privileged background.
But that's not. I'm not criticizing. It doesn't matter what background you're from, you should always be deserving of.
No, but
respect,
it might be. But the reason why she's not done some of these things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So my criticism is that she has got a blind spot for that, but she did, and also the interviews were really quick and it moved really fast. And I thought, I want to know more about these people.
Yeah, it didn't really go into them in great depth. It was kind of, I think each episode is only about 40 minutes, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
I think that's the way, because I did comment on Twitter. I said it's like watching TikTok. It moves so fast, but that's the idea, isn't it? Because I'm a bit of I'm not old, but I'm 45 now. So me watching that, I'm used to seeing documentaries that are a bit more fleshed out. And so this is like a pop culture version of, like I said, it's like a Blue Peter sex ed class with a model, which was great. I've got to say she did a good job, and it was very trans positive. It's great. It's good,
especially
to see,
the episode on what's your gender. I thought that was one of the best ones because she was interviewing trans people in there. It was really good.
But you see, I had all this like weird cod science in when they're talking about gametes and chromosomes. And I'm thinking, I don't know if that really matters. I think I can see the context.
I think they were talking around that more in relation to sexuality at one point in one of the earlier episodes. I don't think they really spoke about that in the what's your gender one. But yeah.
But I've got to remember this is being pitched to an audience much younger than me, and I think, like I say, if you're 16, 17, I would have loved to have seen something like that when I was 16, 17 years old. Because you just didn't really. I mean, Channel 4 used to do a really good queer kind of. I mean, I remember seeing Queer as Folk. Do you remember that TV series and stuff like that? Yeah. So there has been stuff out there, but it's kind of, we're living in a very conservative culture at the moment. So I think it's great that the BBC have done this, of all people.
Go watch
it. Good,
Go watch it. So whilst we were off on our little Christmas break, I think just before Christmas, the Scottish Parliament has approved the gender recognition reforms in the bill that was going through Parliament that week. But so I mean, that's great news in its own right that that's been approved. But there's been some amusing. I'm not sure if they're amusing or just annoying, but there's been some amusing stories come out around the protester and the fake wig.
Oh, you mean the protester in the Scottish Parliament with the merkin?
So gender critical protester flashes pubic wig. I almost said public wig. Pubic wig in Scottish Parliament after trans rights bill passed. So here we have the
thing about this. Yeah, well, what I think about this is Elaine Miller.
Yeah,
she pitched. I looked her up. She's like a comedian. She does like a show about, the body.
Well, this article describes her as the protester comedian, and
but she's linked to the For Women Scotland group.
Yeah,
and she did a show in Edinburgh at the Fringe, and that was promoted heavily by the usual kind of people that are promoting trans exclusionary narratives. So I'm very cynical about her, but I don't like this idea that we're going to criticize her for having the protest. I think if we're going to get all moralistic about what people can do in public and what protest should be, we shouldn't be doing that. We should say, yeah, whatever, get your fanny out, get pussy riot. I love it. Anything, get on with it. But the problem is the message.
About the picture behind us right now is there's the protester in the middle, right between you and me, and then the official on the left-hand side, she's doing this with her hands, like, I don't want to see that. And then the lady sat down next to her, she looks like she's got one on her head.
But it is worth pointing out that the very same people that were very upset about Jordan, I keep forgetting her name.
Jordan Gray on the Channel 4.
Jordan Gray was on Channel 4
Night Live thing, yeah.
Yeah, the very same people that were, oh my God, this is awful. This is like public nudity. Oh, it's nasty. There's the very same people who support these TERFs and For Women Scotland, whatever. They're a lobby group, basically. I've spoke to Susan Smith from that group, but that's their agenda. So I don't have any problem with anybody doing a protest in any kind of, get naked, throw soup at paintings, do it. But the thing is, what is the actual message? And the problem is,
well, you see, the thing about the Channel 4 thing, I mean, that was after the watershed. It was, it was a pre-planned thing. The audience in the room would have known it was going to happen, but this happened in the Scottish Parliament, middle of the day, with people in the general public there. You're not supposed to, had that been a real, been a wig, I mean, you're not supposed to do that in Parliament. You would get arrested for doing that sort of thing.
I don't think she'll get arrested. I just think it's she's used it as a publicity stunt, but it's backfired.
It has.
Because the idea of having a moral authority, if you're because a lot of the arguments against us are like, oh, you're immoral, you're fetishistic, you're weird, all these things. Well, this is what we kind of celebrate in a way, this kind of protest and this kind of freedom of expression.
But there was a huge backlash.
We want her to have.
Yeah. Wasn't there? There was a huge backlash against Jordan, and then absolutely nothing against this. It's like totally kind of, what's going on there? It's like, why is there such a different reaction? Because one's trans and the other's not.
Well, that's it, you see, because once the trans element is, because they think of us as men, you see, so any sort of sexual expression we have, they see it as some kind of, it must be threatening, because and that does men a disservice as well, because obviously, like, we know the statistics, we know that most sex crimes, most horrible things are happening because of men. I don't think it's because of men. I think it's because it's something endemic in society that ignores the misogyny in men. Like, from when boys, it's like this thing. We need to teach boys to stop being misogynistic. We shouldn't be teaching girls that you have to watch out for men. We should be teaching boys not to be arseholes. That might be your starting point.
Yeah, much better.
But when we try and say, look, you need to say this in schools, you need to promote LGBTQI plus whatever, the same people say, no, we don't want any of that. We don't want any of that inclusivity. And that's the crux of it, because they want to maintain the patriarchy and the systemic misogyny, and that's what creates toxic men. It's not boys. Boys are innocent. When boys go through this puberty and they go through this shaming, that there are a lot of men that are shamed for basically having sexual desires about things that other people find they think they shouldn't be feeling. So they'll bury that, and then when they see somebody like me on Twitter, they'll target me because I represent something that they've oppressed. And that's what it comes down to. They'll say, because I am open and nobody can. I mean, everything about me is transparent and it's online, right? But there are a lot of men, I think, who live double lives. What's that? There's a line in a Kinks. I love this song, right? It's called Yo-Yo by the Kinks, and it says there are many different people living double lives, one for the office and one that they take home to their wives. And it's like about that idea that men especially, disguise themselves and they become liars. Men lie because they're ashamed of the feelings that they have. So when they see somebody like us, who's expressing something really, showing that freedom, they don't like it. They don't think we should have a voice, and that's why people try and get me in trouble and try and get me fired. Because when I go on the telly and I talk about trans rights, they think, you should be. What is this now? They're rising up, they're taking over.
I was wanting to point out that Mermaid's put a nice tweet out about it. It said, huge trans win. Scottish Parliament has passed the landmark gender recognition reform bill by 86 votes to 39 after 6 years of tireless, impassioned work by Scottish campaigners. So
yeah, well, it's a good result.
It's good. It was.
I think. What you're going to see now,
the interesting thing is, though, that one of the Scottish MPs who recorded the incident with, the wig, is in trouble now. So, Scottish Parliament investigating MSP who filmed flasher protests during gender bill debate. I thought that was quite amusing. I'm not sure which MP it was. I think it's this guy, whoever he is.
Well, let's remember that it was only a few hours after this Scottish bill was passed that there were noises from Westminster.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next article here. Tory government suggests it could block Scottish gender reform from royal assent. Now, that as soon as it had come out that it had been passed, first thing they do, they start looking at, okay, how can we block this? And one of the things they're trying to use is something that's called the I think it's listed here. It's Section 35 of the Scotland Act gives the UK government the power to intervene on bills. Now, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, if they try and do that, it's going to go straight to the High Court. Yeah. And can you imagine the backlash from the Scottish Parliament and how this would feed into, promoting Scottish independence? I mean, if the government of England, effectively UK government, wants to risk that, go ahead, see what happens.
The thing is, it's a constitutional thing now, because what Nicola Sturgeon, her main focus is Scottish independence.
Scottish lawmaking, can they? This is a devolved issue. Keep your hands off England.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Nicola Sturgeon's project, I think, is to make Scotland independent. Well, yeah, and I think this. And it makes Scotland seem progressive.
They are progressive, more inclusive, much more progressive than England.
But you see now, somebody was asking me, and I don't know if this is true. Could we go to Scotland and get a GRC?
You could move to Scotland, become a resident of Scotland. I think that takes 6 months.
I have because I've got family connections. I don't actually have a family there now.
Once you're ordinarily resident, and I think that takes 6 months, then you could apply. Yeah.
Right, but I don't think I'd qualify.
You would,
because I don't. Anyway, that's just something I was thinking about, because I think
you could just finish off doing the English one.
They had this thing where people went to Gretna Green to get married. You could have this. It could be like this exodus of trans women and trans
I think
people in
a lot of
general.
people will move to Scotland, not just because of this, just because of generally Scotland is becoming more and more kind of accepting of trans people and all other different
I
issues.
imagine what I had another. This is a bit of a tangent, right? But I mean, because we're living in this era of climate change. What if it gets way too hot to live further north than Carlisle? So everybody has to move to Scotland anyway. So suddenly there are like housing projects popping up on the side of the Loch Ness.
That's it. We're all moving north.
There'll be a city like London springs up, and I can see this happening. Right, you heard it here first, guys.
Heard it here first.
You heard it here first. If anybody's got any thoughts,
I've lived in Scotland. I would go back if I felt that it was getting worse and worse here. I would definitely consider going back.
But what's interesting though, it's like they made this massive deal about this bill, but there are other countries in Europe that have had this for a while. If you look at the map of,
there's about 15 countries that have already got self ID.
Wasn't it Spain that?
Well, Spain have just passed a trans rights law to make gender recognition simpler as well.
You see me segue
I think that happened. I went straight
into that topic.
You did.
Professionalism. See, we're much slicker now in 2020.
I had it queued up behind. So this.
I'm drinking.
It was the same
flat
day.
Champagne.
So this was approved by 188 votes to 150. So it was, it was a big win too. Hopefully this will go through in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
A draft bill allows trans people in Spain over the age of 16, note, same as Scotland, to update their gender marker and name and official documents based on a simple request. I mean, that's the way it should be.
Well, what interests me about this is like when I read these stories about progressive policies in Europe and things like that, I think they seem really, because we're sort of entrenched in a lot of negativity on Twitter and the politics of Britain at the moment, or England specifically. And I think when you see things like this, it's like, wow, why is everybody else better than us?
We seem to be slipping behind, don't we?
Why has England become this narrow, nationalistic, inward-looking, paranoid, nervous, anxious bit of land? It's tiny. Get over it. We live in the real big world now. It's time to put your big girl panties on.
Well, hopefully at the next election we can get a better government in and we can sort all this stuff out. Don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But anyway, we live in hope.
Can I just say we've got a few people in the chat, and Roger's here.
Hey, Roger there. Hi, Roger.
And UK Skin, just saying a few hellos, because it's really nice to have people in the chat, because we're just kind of building up the podcast at the moment. And, we did a few, and we just, getting the numbers up. So it's nice to see people interacting with us. So thanks for that. I can't reply to you all because I can't do like a million things at once. I'm just, but I thought I'd mention it.
Try to keep up with pressing all the buttons. It's not easy,
Victoria, hello. Right, so the next story was absolutely fucking hilarious. Andrew Tate has managed to get himself arrested because what was it? He posted on Twitter that I've got 33 cars. How about that, Greta Thunberg? It was like some kind of like posturing, the usual kind of crap that he does.
Yeah, and he was talking about his 33 Bugattis, whatever they were, and their high emissions, and he wanted Greta to send him send him her email address so he could send her the information.
And Greta said, why don't you contact me at smalldickenergy@gmail.knobhead or something. I can't remember what it was, but that was such a burn because Greta has got a lot more. But you see, the thing is, right, about this is that he made the mistake of thinking he could better that, and he couldn't. What he should have done there is say, all right, Greta, you won that one, but he's not that kind of man. He's the kind of man full of ego, probably full of cocaine, and this is it. So he goes on YouTube or whatever, goes, Greta, I tell you what, I'll send you, what was it, oh god, he's so cringe. He was like, he's like there with his massive cigar.
I mean, I've not really known much about this guy until this incident popped up, and I was just reading through, an article about him. He's such a misogynistic idiot. It's
He's
like,
an
what on
arsehole.
earth? He's an arse.
Well, you see, the thing is with this, right? These people know them. They know. It's this thing of the algorithm works for them because enough people hate them, enough people follow them for the lols, and they become like a cartoon character. He's not to me, Andrew Tate is not a real man. He's turned himself into some cartoon. This arrest won't hurt him at all. It'll probably boost him. That's the problem. So even no matter how serious these charges are about trafficking, sex trafficking, and all this, the culture does not punish him.
Well,
right?
I hope the Romanian authorities do.
No, yeah, that might happen. But what I'm saying is people like Piers Morgan, people like Jeremy Clarkson, people like Mike Graham, Julia Hartley Brewer, they love these people because they know that they can present a very simple one-dimensional narrative, and Andrew Tate's message is very simple. It's like, you feel insecure, it's somebody else's fault. Whereas Greta Thunberg, is it Thunberg? Her message is complicated. You have to think about it. It's not about, it's not as simple as you need to do your recycling. It's
her comeback against his video was another class tweet from Greta. This is what happens when you don't recycle your pizza boxes. I thought that was amazing.
Because he managed to reveal his location, didn't he?
Through the pizza box. She's behind me there. Jerry's, whatever it's called.
But if you look at this, if you look at this holistically, if you look at it as this is two people, Greta, Andrew Tate, who represent kind of two opposing narratives. And the thing is that the thing that Tate represents is something that is dying out, right? It really is. Hopefully. You're always going to be. I've had this argument with people who say, "What is wrong?" People like cars. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with liking cars. But the world is changing. We're going from a petrol base from that is going to be, we're going to have more electric cars on the road and all that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, with Andrew Tate, he represents a world that the people want to hold on to, which is changing quicker than they can grasp. And it's like people have always, people can always have a car. It's like we stopped riding horses, but they're still stable. If you want to ride a horse, you can still ride a horse. It just means that not everybody does it. So nobody's taking cars, nobody's taking petrol away from you, right? If you want to drive a Mustang, I've got all the respect in the world for somebody that is an absolute aficionado and fascinated by Ford Mustangs and knows everything about how the engine works. And I think that's something to respect. But that's not what Andrew Tate is. No. He's somebody that is using that.
There's an article here. It was in The Observer. It's like inside the violent, misogynistic world of TikTok's new star Andrew Tate. I mean, anybody watching this, I would recommend you have a read of this. It kind of explains what he's all about, and some of the background of his where he came from, what he does on TikTok, and a bit of his history.
Do you know this idea of a teachable? This idea of a teachable moment, like where you think, "Oh God, yeah, maybe I'm going wrong."
I mean, there's a picture here of him with
he's not going to be,
Nigel Farage, and he's kind of linked in with Tommy Robinson and all those kind of people. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously these things go hand in hand because he represents it. But I think this is why I have a lot of problems with people like Tyson Fury and things like that. I respect people that have, kind of built themselves up and done their own thing. And, I can watch Tyson Fury and somebody like Andrew Tate and think, whatever, you do your own thing, right? But when it comes to this kind of level where you're normalizing misogyny and hate and your whole message is about dehumanizing women.
I think one of the things that you said, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but it was like I'm going back a few years here. I think, I mean, there was a kind of, amongst guys, there was this thing where they were doing this how to chat up women, like a like a chat up school of chat up kind of thing. I can't remember what it was called, but it was so
Well, these are called pickup
misogynistic and
artists.
like a pickup artist, like a school of pickup artists. I mean, they
There
have
was a
these
whole,
books and sites for it, and it's just horrendous. I don't know if you ever looked at it,
but
but that's
yeah,
what he's kind of about. It's
I do actually.
some kind of online
I
university
do
thing
know
that
about.
he's set up for this, and it's
Yeah, of
pretty
course,
horrendous.
because it's about the idea that because right, there's this level of it where it's obviously misogynistic, but it works. This is part of it's endemic in the culture. That's why these people are rewarded for being bad boys. That's how it's portrayed. Oh, yeah, they're just lovable
No, but
kind of
I mean, there's
rogues.
been a bad boy. There's been a bad
No,
boy,
they're not.
no, but there is that, and then there's this like kind of pickup stuff. But then we're now talking about trafficking and rape and stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole different thing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
but
what
it's
he's been
not.
arrested.
I mean,
That's what he's been arrested for.
yeah. I mean, obviously, rape is different than abusing your power
Yeah.
online or whatever. But they're all connected. These guys that follow these men, young boys that look at these men and think, "Yeah, I'm not getting laid, so it must be society's fault. It must be the women's fault. Why aren't women paying me more attention?" It's like,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
why
I
they
guess
come
that's
for us.
these
That's
younger guys who are kind of buying into this idea of I need to learn how to do pickup, but like be a pickup artist to get women. I mean, it's
yeah.
yeah,
The only thing you have to
it's
do
a bit
is
like a
not be an
gateway drug, isn't it?
arsehole. I'll
It's
tell you
like
what.
it's like a gateway
If you,
drug. I mean, you start with that, and where does it lead? Where does it go to?
I'll tell you what. If what I want to say to these boys, if you want to impress women, don't be Andrew Tate.
Exactly. Exactly. There's an example of what not to be.
I might make that my next tweet. But the thing is with it, right? I always come back to this. It's like in the culture, it's endemic. It's not like unusual to hear, even on programs like Loose Women, they'll laugh at the bad behavior of men when it is abhorrent, really. Like their side, they'll have these stupid stories about, is it okay to wolf whistle? And then one of the women will say, oh, well, I quite like it because it makes me feel nice. But it's not about you. It's about people invading your space and being entitled to that space. So, yeah, somebody could make some comment at me in the street and it'll just go over my head. But I will be thinking about it. I thought, what was that about? Why do people think that they have the right to, to do that? And that's why a lot of people come for trans women, because not only not only can they be misogynistic towards us, but because they also think we're men, then there's that double layer of abuse then, because they don't even have to, like, where they might have respected the fact that they might be able to, get off with me, which would never happen, but they just become like abusive on a different level. So, like, I've had guys come into me DMs and like ask me if I've had an operation, and it's that kind of invasion of your space and questioning of you that these people like Andrew Tate promote, and that's my main problem with it. It's not. I mean, I don't care. I want him to get arrested. I want him to be face charges.
Yeah.
But I don't think, because of the way the culture is, I just don't think he's going to be punished, because he might serve like a few months in prison and then come out, and then he'll be back on Piers Morgan.
I mean, he's been detained for 30 days in Romania, and I guess they're figuring out what they're going to do with him based on whatever's been going on.
Well, there will be people working to protect him. That's what I'm saying. So
I think the Romanians have been looking for him for a long time, and then they saw this pizza thing and figured out.
I don't want to go on.
He's in Romania, but yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the charges are. I have no details of the charges, but yeah, if he's been doing those kind of things, he deserves what he's getting.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to go on about this too long, because I don't want to give him the kind of attention that he craves. But that's what
the next story is quite a funny one, actually. This caught my eye because it's coming from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It was about dominatrix trio storm city council meeting to demand publicly funded sex dungeons. I thought, wow.
So it's like council-led sex shops.
So these three women, and the pictures behind us, dominatrix in like quite severe dominatrix gear, rubber outfits and masks and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a latex-clad dominatrix trio stormed a city commission meeting in Florida to demand a tax-funded sex dungeon and honestly work. So,
well, I'm always, you know me, I'm
I
all
know you'd
into
be all
this
in for
kind
that.
of.
I think he got
Yeah,
declined, but I just thought it was a funny story. It kind of
it's a
caught my
great
eye.
story.
Yeah. The trio
It
appeared in
reminds me of.
person at the meeting in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, to demand that the city's doms and subs get the sex dungeon they deserve. Kitted out in black head-to-toe bodysuits, thigh-high boots and motorcycle helmets, the group strutted into the front of the meeting to make their request. They also promised to spank all in attendance.
Well, I mean, more power to them, and I think
Sounds
we
like
meet what we
you're
need.
sounds like you're on a New Year's Eve party.
Well, imagine if you could get. I mean, the thing is with this, right? The worlds of fetish coincide with the worlds of art, and I've seen things funded by the Arts Council that are like fetish kind of events. So it does happen, you know. I mean, there's a kind of abstract version of it. So
I'm just wondering if I can play this.
Artists should be subversive. It should question things, and I think
There's a
that's what this
video.
is.
There's a video here on Twitter. I'm just going to see if I can play it, see if it comes through. I'm not sure the sound will come through.
I'll try it.
So if you can't hear it, you should be able to see them pop up in a minute.
Well, I can't see anything at the moment. But anyway, what I was saying is I love any kind of art protest, like I was saying about Pussy Riot, anything like I like situationism it comes down to.
Yeah, it's not loading.
And it's like this idea that there's a protest, but it's kind of a performative protest. But that doesn't make it any less of a protest. Because protest is choreographed in a lot of ways. You know, you have to have, because it's a visual thing and it's a public thing and it's consumed in that way. Because when things hit the media, they're not quite in the moment, are they? They exist as an abstract of the thing that happened. So situationism, what it is the idea we know this protest is performed, but it means just as much as a what would you call it? A spontaneous protest. So I'm all for that. You know, I mean, no protest is really spontaneous, is it? Because you organise and you, but whether you think of it as a visual art thing is a separate thing. But I always think when you look at, there's always that one image that is taken. You know, there's a riot or a protest. There's always that one image that stands out, the winning image of the day, the money shot. And that is always kind of the most violent moment or the most emotional moment. And that is what carries on. That's what becomes art at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I could get a government funded sex dungeon, I'd be applying right now.
I'm just wondering what Bolton Council would think if you were to go to their council meeting dressed in some gear. What would happen?
They'd say, "Get out, free, not again. Go away."
Again. We told you last week.
Yeah, we told you last time. Stop pissing on our carpet.
No comment.
Right.
Did you see?
Did the video not work?
No, it was very kind of slow. I'm not sure why, but I switched it off. But it was really funny. You should, the link is in the chat on YouTube. So if anybody wants to have a look, it's really quite amusing. Did you see The Voice Kids this last week?
I missed that.
There was a trans contestant, Darcie, age 14.
That's fantastic. You know, that's beautiful.
She did really well. I was amazed at how good she was, and her family, her mum and dad were interviewed, and they were so supportive. It was really nice to see them, you know, being so supportive to their daughter.
This is what I was saying, you know, when we were going through that thing with mermaids and we were talking about that, I was saying there's no visible trans children because they want to protect those children. That's because they're very protective and the parents don't want any, because obviously when they know that in the media, there's a lot of negativity. We've experienced it as adults. So imagine what it would feel like if you were a child. So to have this, I mean, I think this is a really important story. This isn't, you know, a side story. This is a massive story for me because it shows that somebody can express the gender, whatever it is, and be celebrated. and the parent, and you see the family are supportive. And in a way, it breaks my heart because, like, if I'd have seen that when I was a kid, it would have changed my life. Do you know what I mean? If I was
absolutely,
if I would,
yeah. I mean, it's like there is somebody
imagine
like me on TV
imagine
on a singing show. Imagine how good you'll have felt about seeing that. Yeah,
exactly, because when I was younger, the only time you heard anything about trans people or anybody on the trans non-binary spectrum, you never really heard non-binary when I was at school. But it was always something negative, like a woe is me story, or a kind of somebody's committed suicide, or it was always something negative. And there are serious elements that people's lives are hard and complicated. But when you see this celebrated, I mean, imagine being 13, 14 years old and not being sure of your gender and wanting to talk about it, and then seeing that, you'd have something to say. Look, mom, dad, look, I saw this thing on the telly and I really relate, because like it just didn't exist when you know what I mean? I think that goes back to
the parents didn't have to say anything. I mean, they could have just said, here's Darcie and she's going to sing. They didn't have to reveal that she was trans. And I think, I think it would have been Darcie's decision to allow them to do that. But yeah, super supportive of the parents to, come on and do an interview like that. And she did really well. And, will.i.am turned for her. And she had a bit of a reaction to that. She was really excited about the fact that she got through the first stage. Yeah, so hopefully she does really well in the competition. And she was really good. I don't know if you watched it, but it was good.
I've not watched the video, but I will do. Because it's only just occurred to me.
Yeah, it was Tuesday's episode this week, 27th.
It's only just now that it's actually, because I've had a lot to think about myself, but it's only just come to me how important this is, because all we ever hear on Twitter about, because the thing is with the trans kids thing, that is what I call the shoe-in for a lot of negativity. So they'll say they're medicalizing children, they're doing this to our kids. It's like, yeah, whatever. You know that you can pull people's emotional synapses by saying kids and children and then associated it with medicalization. But it's like, no, you don't have to have anything medical. And the thing is with it, it's like when they're talking about just somebody expressing themselves, really. And whether they decide to go down any medical route is their personal truth.
That's not really the point. I mean, the point is,
shouldn't have to justify that.
She's on the show. The parents were supportive. Everything was great. She did a great job. I mean, it's really nice to see.
You see that there's this myth that some transphobes have, that when we see more positivity towards trans people, more people will be trans. And I think that might be true, but there's nothing. Why is it always seen as a negative to be trans? Why not promote that? Why not promote that the idea that gender is fluid and you might not have to identify as this rigid binary? We know our biology. We know that is something that is just we're born with, but it's not the definitive thing about us as human beings. It's like people go on about chromosomes and gametes, but that's not who we are as human beings. And like when you communicate with somebody, you're not going, what chromosome has this person got? You're going, oh, yeah, she seems like a nice person, or she seems like a bit of an arsehole, or whatever it is. You're communicating on a sensory level, not on a genetic level. And, that seems to be lost on a lot of people. Anyway,
but yeah, good luck to her. I hope she wins.
I do.
Or goes as far as she can in the show. Yeah,
I hope she becomes queen.
I'll actually be watching it because I never watched The Voice Kids. I mean, I have watched the adult one, but I think I'll watch this series. It's cheer her on.
Yeah, it's not something I'd watch because I think of it as a bit twee and exploitative.
Yeah, it is a bit, but because it's got somebody like Darcie in it, who's been through what she has and is getting that support from her parents. I think it's really good to support it.
But it's a really powerful message, so it's important.
So, Freda, were you listed in the New Year's Honours this year? Did you get a call?
Unfortunately, I did get the call.
I didn't. I'm a bit disappointed.
I refuse to be an OBE or an MBE or any because I don't support this. Yeah, I would. I would accept. I definitely
You'd
would.
accept it though, even though you don't support
Give
it. You
me.
still say yes, wouldn't you?
I say I don't like this, but I'll have it because it might help me earn some more money. I can understand why people accept these things.
So, have you heard of Helen? I think it's Belcher. She's director of Transactual and trustee of Transmedia Watch.
Transmedia activists, yeah.
Yeah. So she won an OBE.
That's great.
Yeah, so there's the story.
You see, even though I'm cynical about awards and all OBEs and stuff, and I think it's all a corrupt business, when you see somebody like this win, you're like, yes.
Yeah, it's like I'm not really that familiar with them, but it's great to see somebody getting an award like that.
But people don't do things to get awards. They do them because they know it's the right thing to do.
The interesting thing is, though, the story's being kind of written as, a transmedia activist who has been made an OBE said she was afraid of the backlash she might receive as a result. So the story is really about her being afraid of the backlash, not the fact that she's got an OBE. So I think that's a bit of a wrong approach with the story. It should be more of a celebration for getting the OBE. But the fact that there could be some backlash, and there probably will be. I mean, that's the story that the BBC News decided to use.
Well, there's always backlash against everything, isn't there? You could, I'm sure somebody could say anything. Like the word backlash is pretty much meaningless. It's like if somebody says I like cheese, somebody will say I'm vegan. If somebody says I'm vegan,
what Helen said here, she said I would hope it would mean things that we say are taken with a little more seriousness. To be honest, I feel a slight fear of what the press reaction is going to be, because it's almost as if trans people can't do anything right at the moment in the current environment.
Yeah.
Miss Belcher said it was sad. The moment was tinged with the fear of just another big blazing row. I mean, that's all. That's all very true.
I just thought about this in a sense, because I was looking at, Graham Linehan is back on Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's like these people will look at somebody like this.
Almost every single tweet he puts out is anti-trans.
Exactly. And they see this as a threat, because the one thing they don't want is for trans people to be seen as effective, accomplished, and doing something positive. Not because the only way they can think of us is as freaks and weirdos and sexual beings. And that's the only dynamic they have in their mind about us. And when stories like this, the backlash, see the BBC mentioning backlash there, that backlash is coming from people like that. It's not coming from, I think most people they didn't need to put that about backlash.
No, I think the story should have been the celebration. Here's a trans person who won an OBE, and that's the end of it. Do we really want to talk about the backlash? I don't think we do.
No, we don't need that, because the backlash is we know about the backlash. We just want to celebrate the fact that somebody's doing something good in. You can't,
celebrate the fact she's won the OBE, and then look into the work that she does with those organizations. That should be the story. In my opinion.
Would if it was anybody else and they weren't trans, would they mention the backlash? Because everybody gets backlash.
No, it wouldn't be mentioned.
I mean,
but he was on the BBC, so
Captain Tom got backlash.
Yes,
they were saying, "What's this old cod you're doing walking up and down his garden? Sit down, you daft sod." But that's backlash. But they don't mention it because they're only mentioning it now because the word trans is in the story. Do you know what? I'm going to bring something up now that I'm sick of hearing the word trans.
It's in the news every single day.
No, it's not that a trans is not an identity.
No,
it's not my identity. It's something, we live in a world of language and we have to navigate that. And yes, so what I am in the language is trans, and that's why we have the word.
You don't identify as trans. You identify as male or female.
Freda, I'm female and I'm Freda. But even that is purely about legal stuff. And now you define yourself when you fill in a form and stuff like that. But it really annoys me. I'm sick of seeing the phrase trans people and trans woman. And I just want people to be human beings and be named as the person they are.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
they can't keep doing this where the story is tainted. Like I use the word
it's like
tainted because that's the way.
the focus is on the trans thing, and it should be on the person. That's the difference. It shouldn't be. If there was an article about you in the paper, it would be trans woman Freda Wallace instead of just saying Freda Wallace.
It'd be like trans woman Freda arrested for stealing biscuits from Sainsbury's.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing to do with being trans.
I don't steal.
You wouldn't steal them from Sainsbury's. You'd steal them from Tesco's. So. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's like, well, that's what the media do, isn't it? That's what the tabloid press do all the time.
The fact that you're nicking biscuits will be because you're trans.
Yeah. Those pesky trans women
biscuit knickers.
Invading Asda, taking all the digestives away from real women. Get off me, hobnobs. They'll be bringing out special trans food next.
Oh God, don't go
Free from penis. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. Right.
So the next one's a bit more somber. Vivienne Westwood passed away.
Yeah. Oh my God, Vivienne Westwood.
There she is in her glory.
Vivienne Westwood is one of those people.
So let's have a look at your T-shirt.
Oh, God, if I stand up, will I disappear out the frame?
Your head might disappear out the frame, but
Can you see it?
Yeah. Cool.
Well, it's not an original Vivienne Westwood. It's kind of a copy of the Seditionaries brand that she outsourced. But it's my Jane County T-shirt. Jane County was the first kind of transgender punk rock and roll kind of person, and she came out of the Andy Warhol factory New York scene, and she lived through that 70s punk era, and she was part of that Sex Pistols
proper icon.
Yeah, but the thing about Vivienne Westwood is like that I've always liked is she was very left of center politics, very left, and she was very outspoken about certain things, but I think she managed to get away with some stuff because she's in a fashion world and it's seen as slightly out there, slightly outsider, because it's almost like acceptable. She's eccentric, she's an eccentric woman, so it's kind of permissible. But I think she's just a beautiful designer, and I don't think people understand the impact that, because it's really weird looking. Because if you go in Primark now, you'll see T-shirts that look like this.
That picture on the screen now behind us is Vivienne Westwood and Malcolm McLaren. It's a really cool picture.
Yeah, you'll see stuff in high street shops now that would have been very, very subversive in the 60s, mid 70s to early 80s. And that's her. That was her doing. And
she was a close friend of Julian Assange too.
Right. Yeah. Well, she supported Julian Assange.
And she did a protest, didn't she, in a birdcage, in support of Julian.
Yeah, I was just reading about that. Yeah.
I think there's a picture of it here.
But she was always doing this. She was all like with the thing with fashion, and I think I talked about this with Balenciaga and things like that. They always trying to be edgy. A lot of these fashion brands now try to be edgy, and it comes from this kind of culture of Vivienne Westwood and other designers in that stream. But they kind of fail in the modern era because I think Balenciaga, with what they're doing, is just too try hard. It's trying too hard,
maybe. Yeah,
it's trying too hard to shock now because maybe they've just run out of ideas.
But Vivienne Westwood just did it in her sleep, didn't she?
Yeah. Because the main motivator for people like Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood was to be the upsetter. To say like, this is what can we do in opposition to this? So it's to create a parallel opposite to something that is normalized. So they'd take a picture of the Queen that is on the banknote and put swastika eyes on it and And that actually was a different. And that wasn't them actually. That was later. That was another. I can't remember his name now, but there was another designer that did that. But they used to mess around with that kind of Nazi imagery.
I mean,
and it wasn't because
if you think about design nowadays, who would kind of replace or be the equivalent of Vivienne Westwood in today's fashion world? I mean, who is that?
They don't exist. I don't think.
I'm trying to think of somebody who's on that level. I just can't think of the names. And maybe it's just kind of unknown people that we've not heard of. I don't know, but yeah,
there are people doing stuff. I mean, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but if you look at high fashion, because you'll see this is like the same story we get in the Daily Mail. You know, where they pretend to be shocked by things. So they'll show, you know, when they do like a Paris fashion show or a London Fashion Week, designers, what they do in there is that they're showcasing their most extreme vision, like the purest of their vision. So it's not the stuff that's going to end up in H&M, is it? You know what I mean? But it will it be influenced by that? But you'll see and then the story is, oh my God, look at this, what people are supposed to be wearing this month. And it's like, no, that's not meant to be worn on day-to-day life. But it actually does filter down slowly, like things that were subversive in the 70s are just accepted now. Even something as simple as having a spiky haircut, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's been a strange week because, you know, this seems to happen every year. You always get like really famous people dying over the Christmas New Year period. I don't know what that's about, but
it's the cold.
I don't know what it is, but you know, Pele also died, age 82.
Yeah, I've got to admit to you, I don't know a lot about Pele. I know he was a Brazilian
obviously he's a very famous footballer. I have his image here.
Yeah,
in the article about Pele. You know, probably one of the best footballers in the world, Brazilian guy.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I say I'm not very interested in football, but I would watch a documentary about somebody like this because I'm fascinated by people's lives, and I think somebody that has that kind of influence and achievement, they must have something special. It's like they must contain some kind of divinity. I don't know. That's a bit of a fanciful way of putting it, but I think I'm really fascinated by people that are.
But you know, during his career, there's just some stats on his career there, scoring a world record of 1,281 goals in 1,363 appearances during a 21-year career, including 77 goals in 92 matches for his country. I mean, some of his stats are quite amazing.
I mean, there's always got to be somebody that's better, isn't there? There's always got to be that one that shows everybody else.
The only people that could kind of challenge Pele would be, you know, people like Messi and Ronaldo, but still miles off, in my opinion.
Well, people are speculating on where I pinch my biscuits from now, so I don't pinch anything. People give me things because they love me.
And then, you know, just continuing on the theme of death. I don't know why I'm focused on death, but
why are we ending on death, Vicky?
I know.
I suppose it's quite.
There's the last kind of topic we had here was the Pope had died, the former Pope, Pope Benedict. Was it the 16th?
Yeah, he wasn't very popular, was he?
Died at age 95. Well, no, he wasn't very popular, and he was quite anti-LGBT, wasn't he? I think he was in Hitler's youth. He was in Hitler's youth at one point.
Well, there were probably a lot of people in Hitler's youth that didn't want to be there, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
But that's not me, you know, giving a free pass to people that were Nazis. That's just me having a realistic view of the time.
Yeah.
I don't have any time for popes.
But he's the only pope that I think in 600 years almost that resigned or was pushed out from the role. About 10 years ago, I think it was.
The thing that bothers me about this Pope thing is like the idea that a religion has a boss. Like,
and it's always a man. Notice it's always a man.
the head of religion is the Pope.
This is how I kind of understand why religions are, in my opinion, a nonsense. Because if you look at all the major religions, they're all organized, run, defined by men. So, you know, why is that?
Well, what I want to see the first trans woman Pope, and I think it's going to be me. Could you imagine?
Pink News put out an article about LGBT Catholics recall tremendous damage that Pope Benedict caused during his painful reign. So I think he, came out with some pretty negative things about the LGBTQ community. Anyway, we won't focus on that. But I thought it was interesting that, Vivienne Westwood, Pele, and the Pope all died the same week. I mean, can you imagine the pearly gates, what the conversation they'll be having?
I was going to say something about Pele, actually. I was just reading that, and I was thinking, when people talk about trans women in sport and how it's unfair to have trans women competing against cis women, I was thinking, well, why do people watch sport? And it's not just about
it's for the excitement and the competition, isn't it? It's like,
but there's a kind of thing that people relate to, like when they look at sports people, they go, it's about that striving to be better, to overcome all the odds, to reach for something that's bigger than yourself, and to focus and to self-actualize. And I think when we see trans women doing that, we actually think that's a metaphor for all the struggles that ordinary people face. Now, I don't know. I'm not a sports scientist. I can't tell you what the difference is. And the like when people talk about body mass and they talk about hormone levels and all that, that's out of my hands. I trust that sports scientists can analyze that stuff. But when I'm watching sport, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about, this guy's amazing, this girl's amazing. I'm thinking I can get behind this person because they represent something to me as a human being.
But I think the important thing with sports is that it's competitive, but it needs to be on as much a level playing field as you can. You want to try and remove people's advantages. And this whole topic around trans inclusion in sport, which I know you're going to be talking about later on whatever show it is you're going on.
Well, I'm going to speak on GB News later.
Yeah, it's only a short thing, but it's like when a trans person is excluded from a sport. I mean, why are they doing that? I think it's because fear and thinking that this isn't fair. But if you consider that the trans person has been on, if it's a trans woman, they've been on, HRT, and that reduces your performance levels dramatically over a period of like 4 months to a year. I mean, then you'd be competing on a level playing field. So, I'm all for, the kind of the medical science behind it to show that, based on the fact that we've checked and, this does happen. I mean, the argument should be, how can we include people based on it being fair, not how can we exclude people?
Because once you go down that road of saying we want to exclude, that's a very inhuman.
The first most important point is how do we include on a fair basis? That's where it should start, in my opinion.
I think another part. I mean, this is going off on a bit of a tangent, really, on the Pele story. But the thing that always strikes me is that there's this notion that anti-trans people. That men are trying to invade women's sports. Now, nobody decides to be trans, and certainly nobody makes that journey thinking, I want to beat women. They don't do it. You know what I mean? They don't think, right, I want to do well in sports, so I'm suddenly going to decide to be a woman so I can... Why would that cross your mind?
It wouldn't.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a nonsense. It's just,
we've seen
the arguments they come up with.
I mean, with Emily Bridges and things like that, we see time and time again that they don't win massively. They don't, because I think I would be the first person if somebody was winning everything and somebody was like way ahead and there was no actual competition because one person was like Superwoman. I'd be like, no matter what gender they were, I would say, look, this person, they're making a bit of, they're special, they're weird. We need to put them in a separate category. But that's not happening, is it, really?
Yeah, so the conversation you're going to be having later is around, should they be creating a separate category for trans sports people? And they're suggesting that in that category, it should be men, trans women and non-binary people. I mean, how on earth does a trans woman who's on HRT compete with a man who's obviously not on HRT? I mean, how is that fair? It doesn't make sense to me.
Another thing,
it's just an argument to how can we exclude trans people because we don't like them. It's not It's not an argument around how do we include them because we want to be an inclusive organization, you know.
But it's like some people that we get drawn into these arguments that we're not experts in, but we have some kind of emotional investment in. So I'm not a sports scientist. I don't really follow sport even that much, but the story is interesting to me because it represents that kind of thing where what I call a performative argument. The argument only exists in the media because of the word trans. Right, and that is where the story lies. It's about weaponizing and finding something to make us seem like we're a threat or we're invading, and it's all these. It's the same narratives against immigration and the same media people promote. It's like I was saying about they're all lobby groups that write that fund these stories in the Daily Mail or whatever it is. I always mention the Daily Mail because that's their bread and butter, isn't it? Because if the hunting lobby want to put a story and they'll pay for that story and they'll show pictures of angry looking foxes with the headline "Fox Eats Child." It's the same mechanism. It doesn't matter what the subject is. They want people to be afraid and they want people to be frightened of something they don't understand because some lobby group wants people to be afraid of it. Now, if it with the trans and sports thing, I think if there was an obvious situation where there was one person that was physically stronger, I mean, they had that case of Fallon Fox, the kickboxer.
Yeah.
But kickboxing is a very unregulated world, and it's a very money-led world, and it's not like, so there were kickboxing promoters that would put her with women knowing she would win. That's the failure, not of being trans. It's a failure of the system that is trying to make money. Now, you don't want to.
I mean, those kind of things kind of, fog the thing, don't they? I mean, it's difficult to kind of pull out the truth of what's going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would recommend for people who may be listening or watching is that Kirsty Miller, Australian lady, well-known sports person. I think she won Olympic medals. I don't know, but she did a really interesting interview on ABC Australian radio, which I tweeted out yesterday. It's really a good listen. I would recommend anybody have a listen to that. And they go into all the issues around some of these topics around hormones and performance levels and how what the IOC is doing with these kind of issues. It's really interesting to listen. Kirsty's really kind of an expert in this field. I would recommend her as my first point. If you want to have a listen to some of the arguments. And also Felix did an interview, your friend Felix. He did an interview.
I only know Felix on Twitter. I don't know Felix in real life, but I know we've had a few chats, so I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a really good interview too.
I'll have a look at that. I mean, I always worry that, because I'm not an expert on any of, when it comes to sport, I need to, because I'm going on to talk from a trans perspective. So it's about the story. It's not about, it's about the bigger picture, isn't it? Why this story exists and who it's trying to appeal to. So I always approach it that way, because a lot of these things, like when they're talking about prisons, when they're talking about sports, when they're talking about single-sex spaces, those arguments exist not to help anybody, but to demonize a section of society most of the time. So that was the problem. So yeah.
Well, good luck on your appearance.
On my appearance, I thought my appearance is fine, thank you.
Not your appearance. Your later appearance.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was I think that's I think we've gone through all our topics, haven't we?
We have. Yeah.
And I just can you say hello to some people who've chatted? I think mainly Roger.
Yeah, I've not been following the chats because I've been busy doing the.
No, because I like it when people chat because it feels less lonely out here. But I know I knew it was going to be a bit quiet today with it being New Year's Day, and people are hungover. People have been out to
Oh yeah,
parties.
There's a lot of chatting. I'm just having a look at the chats now. There's a lot of chatting going on
Say
there.
hello to people, but you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, Happy New
New
Year.
Queer.
Happy New Queer.
And I think 2020 is going to be really bumpy. I think there's going to be
there's going to be lots of stuff going on, I'm sure.
There's a lot brewing, isn't there? There's a lot of tension brewing, not just in this trans debate, but also globally. And I think you're going to see the ramping up now towards elections, because we know we're going to get a general election in about 15 months, and you're going to get a US presidential election in about the same time.
Yeah, it's coming up.
So what you're going to see lobby group, like I always mention lobby groups because that's basically, political influencers. They're not politicians. There's a difference between a politician and a political influencer. And a politician is generally following the political influencers, because people even somebody like Andrew Tate, politicians will follow him and think, maybe we can appeal to some of his fans. And that's how it works now. So you
try and use them just to boost their bases, as they say. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this is what I'm saying. So somebody there'll be people on the left who'll side with Greta Thunberg, but you see it all the time, these pundits that come on to talk TV and GB News. So we've all got a certain angle we want to push, but there are certain people that are pushed more than others because the channel wants a certain political leverage, and they know where the money is coming from. So there's not a lot of money. There's no left wing kind of GB News, is there? There's no left wing version of. I mean, there might be. You've got Byline Times and you've got Byline TV, but
I'd like to see Pink News do a TV show. I think that would be good.
Actually, they should do a podcast. Don't they do a podcast?
Well, they could come on ours, couldn't they? I think they do, actually. But
I'll go on it. I'll go on anything, me. I'll turn up to the opening of an envelope.
Yeah. As long as they pay you, she'll do anything.
Money. Well, no, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have something interesting to say. Oh, maybe I'm just talking complete nonsense, but
no, I think it's not. We've said this before. It's not easy going on those shows and talking about trans issues as a trans person when you're being attacked by not only the host but also the other guest. That's not an easy thing to do.
But I don't go on there as a trans person, like I said before.
No, but I know you don't, but you are. So they know that.
But I go on there thinking, over here is some bullshit,
I think
over here is
tonight's
the truth.
You should kind of not focus on the fact that you're trans at all, and just talk about the issue. That would be good.
Yeah. Well, that's what I try to do, but they tend to try and trip you up.
Yeah, they'll try and trip you up and say, "Oh, Freda, you're a trans woman. What do you think?"
Yeah, Freda,
well,
you
it's
used
nothing
to be
to do
a
with
man.
being a trans woman, but here's my thought.
I don't even, what, in my real life, I very rarely think about, when I'm interacting with people, it doesn't even cross my mind that I have to state that I'm trans.
I know.
Or anything
It's
like
you shouldn't have to state it anyway. I mean,
in some
nobody else.
sexual
Number one, it's nobody else's business, and number two, do you want to be talking about it all the time? No.
Well, I've noticed that as I've gone through my transition and been freed more, I've thought about it less. It's only because I'm doing this kind of going on the media and talking about it that I. But you think, one of my motivations is before I came out, I like to see people being visible and being out there and saying that I'm a trans woman and I do this, because I think that's a positive thing. Because in some ways you could be trans and never even mention it. You could just get on with your life and never be involved in politics.
Yeah, having the trans voice out there is important. I mean, you got a nice message from Paul Brewer. Is that his last name? Was it Brewer?
Bloomer,
sorry, Paul Bloomer. Yeah. He sent you a really nice message on that last one you did.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about sending that positive thing out, because like I said, you could be trans and never get involved in politics, and there's no reason why you should. But because I'm kind of an attention seeker, I suppose I am a bit, because I'm a bit of a performer and I like being a doing my art stuff, but I see it as all part of the same thing, you know. Like I don't see my, you know, when I do my stage stuff, when I do like poem, but spoken word, I don't see that as any different than going on GB News. I think I'm still sending the same core message, even if it's in a different form, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I do it. And
right. Well, I shall tune in later and have a watch.
Well, anyway, but it's lovely to chat, and I'm
what do you
so
think
glad
of
we've got
our new design? It's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to get some
Our new
feedback,
image.
guys. I mean,
some feedback, please.
is the sound okay? Because
How's
we
the
had some
sound? How's the image?
glitching problem. We had some glitching problems, didn't we?
We
before?
we were having some echoey problems. I think we solved those.
I've having some fringe problems. My fringe has grown out now. So I've got like an emo quiff thing going on. But yeah, I'm glad we've got 2023 podcast off to a good start. So we're going to build on it now. We want to keep promoting it, and get a little team of a little crew together who watch us, and then they can share
don't
our
forget
stuff
to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to make some jingles. Yeah. Gender nebulous.
Yeah, maybe we need a new tune. Do you think we need a new theme tune?
Yeah, I'm singing it now, and you interrupted me.
Oh, is that the tune? Oh, God.
Gender nebulous every Sunday at 5:30.
Right, I think it's time to sign off. Say goodbye to our lovely listeners.
Well, thank you for viewing. Thank you for tolerating us.
Thank you for tolerating us, yes. And we will be here next week, hopefully.
And yeah, we're going on the BBC soon, aren't we, Victoria? Hopefully.
Well, that's the plan. Yes, whether it's actually going to happen, we'll have to wait and see.
We got a call from a producer who wants to review our. Well, we better be careful. We're not sending them something where we're swearing. I was saying, she said, "Send me a clip of the podcast." I was like, "Shit."
So send send the link to this one. This is the latest one.
I'm like, yeah, we'll do. I'll extract something from it, but it's really hard to find a bit where I'm not slagging someone off or saying something disgusting.
Indeed.
No, I'm quite well behaved now.
Yeah, you've toned down.
If you listen to our earlier,
you've toned down quite a lot.
I'm not toned down. I've just got more precise in my, like, more economical with words.
All right. So I shall sign us off.
Oh, Sarah just said Happy New Year. So we'll say hi to Sarah. Hi, Sarah, Roger, and Victoria, and Roger. Oh, I said Roger. I'm not sure UK Skin is, but I'll call her UK Skin because that's the username. So bye for now. Thanks for watching. And I'm going to get myself a drink of flat champagne.